All right. First rule of this channel, we not talk about this channel. Second rule of this channel, this is not legal advice. So this is going to be after waivers for week 10, coming out of week 9. This is going to be the proactive waiver wire show where we're sitting around at midnight drinking coffee, getting ready for waiver wire to clear so I can snake those guys from my opponents. Now, I do have in my notes, this is where we have to start having the conversation about having the guts to get cute and roll those guys that we think we can predict versus those guys that we need to start thinking about benching that we can't trust anymore or predict. We're going to talk about the Bears. The fantasy football holy grail is the opportunity funnels on okay offenses versus good offense. And we can talk about like the Lions where there may be a lot of opportunities to score touchdowns, but we can't predict that they're going to go to our guys. Like that's why opportunity funnels end up being so valuable is because like now we can best that when they get down to the red zone, less than those good offenses, those red zone opportunities are going to go to our guys. Bro, also like that's why like good offenses end up being very similar to bad offenses or not good offenses from a fantasy perspective because when we look at like the Lions, there may be only a limited opportunity for guys to score touchdowns on a week-to-week basis because we don't know where those opportunities are going to go. That's the same thing with an opportunity funnel on a bad offense. There may be zero red zone opportunities on a bad offense. Our guy on a good red zone or good offense may only get a couple of red zone opportunities, and if they don't cash those in, and the other guys on a good offense do, then they end up being the same guy from a fantasy perspective in our scoring columns. Now, I will talk about George Pickens because know what a guy is, and we'll talk about Cedric Tillman here in a second. Know what a guy is when you're putting him in your lineup, and know if you start getting cute with some of these guys that you are chasing these high upside players that have like very low floors, you're going to miss out on their spike weeks. So George Pickens, if you had George Pickens last year and you actually rolled him out in like week 14 or week 15, you probably benched him for your week 16 semifinals where he did the 6 for 4 for 195 and 2 touchdowns. That's what George Pickens is. And then you probably put him back in your lineup if you were able to win with George Pickens on your bench. You did roll him out and get that like 9 for 7 for 131 in your chip. So again, if you're rolling out your George Pickens or a guy like George Pickens, like realize that if you get cute with these guys, they're going to do their spike weeks on your bench. And we'll talk about these guys a little bit later today. This is why I bring up like Cedric Tillman is like, how many more spike weeks do you think Cedric Tillman has left in him? Now, if you've been like holding on to Cedric Tillman because like you haven't had the guts to roll out Cedric Tillman, he may not have any more spike weeks the rest of the year. His spike weeks happen on your bench or someone else's bench or on the wire. Like that's why like being able to predict these guys ahead of time, the guys that rolled Cedric Tillman out week 7, because we could have predicted that. We also could have predicted that it would stay somewhat consistent against Baltimore and somewhat consistent against the Chargers. That's why I would say like I think there's a few more spike weeks left in Cedric Tillman, but the offense is going to be unpredictable. You might have to deal with a couple 40-degree days with him in your lineup to get a couple more of the spike weeks he's likely going to have left in him for the rest of the year. And then the other thing to talk about with all the bye weeks coming up, it is more important to block some of these guys than it is to roll them out primarily. And I'll talk about this like the guy that I lost to in my main money league, he had Hunter Henry as a tight end. I wasn't concerned with Hunter Henry. I was happy to go up against Hunter Henry. Taysom Hill was on the wire, and I didn't think about the fact that like I would have been more scared about Taysom Hill with all the vacated opportunity for the Saints. That was last week. Now there's more vacated opportunity for the Saints. And I probably should have stashed Taysom Hill on the bottom of my bench, then had him roll against me. I didn't lose because I didn't block Taysom Hill. I lost because of Drake London and A.J. Brown. But, the idea, the theory is still there why I should have been blocking Taysom Hill. So thinking about those guys that are out there. And the other thing is we can also start talking about this would be the time that if you have a good enough team, start getting ready to transition your roster for the playoffs. And we will talk about that a little bit more probably as the season goes on. But like those were the other moves to be making is with Cedric Tillman, guys like him being with their bye weeks, like knowing this is the guy that I will be rolling come the playoffs. There's other guys on my roster that I could be moving if I'm in a league where there's trades that are going to be available. So thinking about that stuff ahead of time. Now, week 10 buys, you are looking at the Browns, the Packers, the Raiders, and the Seahawks. Did hear that DK Metcalf was getting shopped, not going to get traded. Week 11, the Giants, the Cardinals, the Bucks, and the Panthers. Now, the other thing from week 11, there are a lot of streaming defenses. If they're available, they get dropped. The Lions, the Vikings, the Rams, the Browns, the Falcons, the Jets. These are all probably shouldn't be available if they are. The two big ones that if you can pick them up now, it would be the Dolphins going up against the Raiders or the Texans going against the Cowboys. Like, because of the news, again, this is, after waivers, but like certain news that we wouldn't have known ahead of time with the Cowboys, because it does look like Dak's going to go on IR, and then the Dolphins, the Raiders do look like a train wreck in general when we're looking at those type of things. I think the Rams should already be available, or should have already been picked up, so I don't know if you're going to be able to pick them up unless they're dropped. And then maybe you could speculate on the Falcons going against the Broncos. Jets, if they're available, we could speculate them going against the Colts. And I'm looking at my notes. Vikings, if they were somehow dropped, they shouldn't be available. But if they are going against the Titans, this would be after waivers if someone drops the Vikings somehow. And then the Detroit Lions, they are playing the tanking Jags. So if someone drops the Lions, or you have to knife fight for them to pick them up to get ready for your Week 11. Remember, roster construction stuff, that one primary defense that I can guess on a week-to-week basis, and then the other defense that I will be streaming certain matchups. I want to have that streaming defense 1 week ahead of when I will be rolling them out. That's what kind of the point of the show is. All right, 49ers, and this is a second or third take tonight. No news right now regarding Jordan Mason. The news coming out, and I can take off the Titans. CMC still tracking to play Week 10 right now. Now, what I would talk about this with Jordan Mason and Isaac Garriendo, probably would not be looking at cuffing Isaac Garriendo right now. I would be holding on to Jordan Mason and tracking like what's going to go on with Christian McCaffrey. I think there's a possibility you could get as low as 30% snaps if he's active. I think you could get as high as I wouldn't be expecting more than 70% snaps. Even in that case, I don't know how much you're going to get like the full Christian McCaffrey experience. You may get some type of desperation play out of Jordan Mason or Isaac Garriendo at this point if you really need to. But like in general, we're still tracking on CMC coming. The other one is Juwan Jennings. If he was dropped in your league, I would be knife fighting for him right now. Probably going to be capped out as a wide receiver 3. It's going to go Kittle, Debo, I would imagine, and then CMC before Jennings is available. But if he's available, to go after him. And then I would, and again, this is a theory channel, if you can pick up Ricky Pearsall for a bag of chips and hold him to find out what's going to go on coming out of the bye week, that's not a bad idea either. All right, I did say I was going to talk a little bit about the Bears, so I did see this is why I had to stop a previous take and go over this again. So first and foremost, it does look like Khalil Herbert was traded to the Bengals. We'll talk a little bit more about that when we get to the Bengals here in a second. In general, this was a kind of a blowout, so you're looking at 62% snaps for Swift, 38% snaps when it comes to Roschon in this game, and then moving on to the wide receivers, and this is why I would talk about like the guys that you could trust. So like DJ Moore goes from a wide receiver 2 with theoretical wide receiver 1 upside to start the year. At this point, I think he's a wide receiver 3. 9 targets, 118 air yards. You're also looking at Keenan Allen at 93% snaps, 10 targets, 131 air yards. Did have a red zone opportunity in this game. And then finally, Rome at 88% snaps, 7 for 5 for 104. In this one, you're looking at 108 air yards and a red zone opportunity. This would probably be the only guy that I would be okay rolling out for the rest of the season at the price that I paid for him, because I probably spent like somewhere between like a 7th and an 11th round pick when it comes to like Rome in most of your leagues, because I know I'm going to get spike weeks out of Rome. I'm also going to get sub 40 degree days. Now, I will talk a little bit about real football when it comes to these guys. Like, this is not how I would design the offense, especially like Keenan Allen leading everybody in air yards, because Keenan Allen should be the guy that like you're either scheming open to get a first down, or you're going to get the check down monster work to him when the primary, which is Rome or DJ Moore, isn't open. Now, how I would design an offense, and I'm a defensive coach, so I'm more concerned with how to break an offense, is Rome would be the isolated X, and if you don't double coverage Rome, I'm just going to pick you apart. I'm going to go like 10 targets to Rome, because I don't really care what's going on out in the field. He's big, he's fast, he can do contested catch stuff. That's how I would just pump targets to him. He theoretically should have a certain amount of air yards each week. Now, DJ Moore would operate as the Z, a little bit more gimmicky designed stuff. I also expect DJ Moore to be able to create opportunities for himself, but like, I don't know why you would use Keenan Allen as your air yard guy on a week-to-week basis. What that means from a fantasy perspective, you're not going to be able to predict any of these guys. Probably should be looking to either make DJ Moore someone else's problem, or downgrade DJ Moore to where he's similar to a Cedric Tillman or a Rome in your offense. or in your lineup to be able to construct around these guys. Otherwise, yeah, you're getting to the point where like you're going to realize that if you bench DJ Moore, there will be a certain amount of spike weeks that like you're gonna have on your bench. Just the way to think about it. Same thing with Cole Kmet. Like no opportunities in this game. That's just not acceptable if you're running a functioning offense with these guys. Like someone should be able to get open. That, and some of this may be Caleb Williams. I don't care from a fantasy perspective. All right, moving on to the Bengals in this one. So Jermaine Burton to start off with. He was a surprise scratch because he just didn't show up to walkthroughs, I guess. And I guess they were expecting him to have him be a big part of the offense. Yosivas was at 91% snaps with T. Higgins out. Did lead all wide receivers in air yards at 53. Did have the red zone opportunity that he cashed in this game. Trent Irwin was at 30% snaps. Kendrick Pryor was elevated from the practice squad. He did 24% snaps in this game. If you're wondering about all this stuff, and then I'll bring all this stuff up so I can talk about like a little bit about Mike Gesicki here in a second. So Eric All, he's done for the year with an ACL. I did see that Zach Moss also went on the IR with his neck right now. Drew Sample, he's going to be the blocking tight end. You might get Tanner McLaughlin, 1-to-1 replacement for Eric All. He hasn't been active. He's kind of similar skill set when it comes to Eric All. I bring all this up is like I talked about this in Chasing the Dragon. 36% snaps for Mike Gesicki in this one. He led everybody with 78 air yards in this one. Red zone opportunity that he tugged on, had another touchdown in this game. 6 for 5 for 100. How much are you going to be able to predict Mike Gesicki? Like if you're rolling him out as some type of like low end desperation wide or tight end one, yeah, you're going to get a certain amount of spike weeks. Like we talked about this last week, and even on the grift. Like if you can guess this week, you will get this. So if you want to continue to roll Mike Gesicki out, you're going to get a certain amount if they use him in that big slot role. Week 2 he goes 9 for 7 for 91, and then week 8, 8 for 7 for 73. Then we get the big spike week. It will likely be there to a certain extent the rest of the year. But, and here's the but, like T. Higgins is going to come back from that quad, and then that's going to be the number 2 in the offense. I still imagine that like Burton may eventually eat his way back into the offense. That means like probably the big loser is going to be Yosivas. I don't know how many weeks you're going to be able to predict a Mike Gesicki spike week. This may have been the week, and the way that you would have known that is when Jermaine Burton was a healthy scratch with T. Higgins being out. All right. So moving on to the running backs, Zach Moss, like I said, he goes on IR with that neck. I want to see on season-ending IR, it says for Moss. So that's just the way it goes. I was wondering about that. This would mean that like Chase Brown, like you could speculate either way when it comes to Chase Brown. If you can buy Chase Brown for less than running back 1, I would probably be thinking about doing that. Remember, like it's a speculation channel. If you can sell Chase Brown for less or more than like running back 2, like if you can get like running back 1 way or another, I would think about that. I don't necessarily know with Khalil Herbert if he will eat directly into Chase Brown. Now, Chase Brown's performance may have told the Bengals, we're good with making Chase Brown our bell cow for the rest of the season. So 80% snaps, 27 for 120, 5 for 5 for 37, and a touchdown. That was a red zone opportunity. He also had 7 more red zone carries to go along with this in this game. So if this remains consistent, this is league winner. That's the long and short of that one, especially when we're talking about like red zone opportunities and passing work to go along with this. I don't entirely think that like Khalil Herbert is going to eat into some of the pass blocking reps. Like that's just not what he does. Like Khalil Herbert's good at football. I imagine you might get like close to 40% snaps, a certain amount of like work. It may end up being like very similar to what the Zach Moss rule was before. That's why I would say if someone wants to buy Chase Brown for like running back 1 prices, is probably not a bad idea. If you want to speculate this remains consistent, and you can buy him for like running back 2 prices, I probably would. Especially this would be the time to speculate on it because of the Khalil Herbert news that came out. All right. Moving on to the Bills, this was kind of a knife fight when it comes to the Dolphins, and the reason why I bring that up is some of the usage we can imagine that like in most of our scripts we can predict at this point. So starting off with James Cook, 55% snaps, 10 for 44, 6 for 5 for 25 in this game. Before I get into anything else, he did have 2 red zone carries and 1 red zone target. He didn't tug on those. You're primarily going to be looking at the possibility of a slight uptick in Ray Davis, like 14% snaps, 4 for 20, 2 for 2 for 70 and a touchdown. That was a 63-yarder. But, and like all good things, there's a but to this. Ty Johnson on his 29% snaps, he may be a little bit more of the trustworthy design passing work back in this one. He did have a red zone carry to go along with this too. So again, your guess is going to be good as good as mine. How much James Cook's usage is going to be like running back one-esque, or if a Ray Davis and Ty Johnson are going to eat into him enough over the season. So if you're wondering about speculating on these guys. Now, Amari Cooper was out with a wrist, so we can look at the wide receivers before we get to Dalton Kincaid, because I probably would be buying Dalton Kincaid based off of this. 53% snaps, 7 for 6 in this one. He did have a red zone target. And then Matt Collins was at 68% snaps, 5 for 5 for 30 red zone target. He tugged on that. That's with Amari Cooper being out. Curtis Samuel was active in this one, 26% snaps target. And then Keon Coleman in this one, 79% snaps, 2 for 1 for 21. That one missed target, that was a drop by him that turned into an interception. I don't know what's going on with his wrist right now. He did also have a red zone target in this game. And I bring all this up, now we can start about Dalton Kincaid in a neutral script game. He was the wide receiver 1 in this offense. 79% snaps, 10 for 4 for 32. Led everybody in air yards at 72, compared to Mac Hollins, who led all wide receivers with 23. 2 red zone opportunities. And this is what we talk about, like James Cooks or your Chase Brown. 2 red zone opportunities. Some weeks they're going to go to him. Some weeks they're going to go to other guys, right? So if I could buy Dalton Kincaid for a bag of chips, I will. Why would I be buying Dalton Kincaid for a bag of chips? Because he's a tight end, first and foremost. He can't break my heart. And Amari Cooper coming in the offense, some of that 10 targets and 72 air yards with red zone opportunities, there's going to be weeks where it goes to Dalton Kincaid because teams decide to take away Amari Cooper. Now, how often are teams going to decide to take away Dalton Kincaid and allow Amari Cooper to do Amari Cooper things? Well, I probably don't care, because Dalton Kincaid is a tight end. So I would probably, if someone wants to give me Dalton Kincaid for a bag of chips based off this usage in a neutral script game. Now, when we look at some of the games that are going to be out there for the Bills, the Chiefs, the Rams, the Lions are going to be games that we can maybe project are going to be somewhere in the neutral script to negative script type of game for the Bills. 10 targets. 72 air yards, 2 red zone opportunities that I'd be looking at with these guys. Dawson Knox in this game was at 65% snaps. He did have 2 targets, if you're wondering. Moving on to the Broncos, and this was one of the ones we were talking about in the comments when it comes to like how good the Broncos are. Well, they may not be good. I may not care, because opportunity funnels on okay offenses are something I want to target in fantasy. But I also want to know what I'm buying when I go after these guys, because Courtland Sutton, yeah, you're buying a certain amount of bad weeks. Why? Because if teams want to take away Courtland Sutton, they can take away Courtland Sutton. It's not a good offense. But on other particular weeks, and remember, this was a blowout, you are looking at potentially buying, and this is probably going to be buying, you're going to have to pay for Courtland Sutton. I probably would overpay to go get him. 10 for 7, 122, 132 air yards, 2 red zone opportunities. I don't need to know how the sausage was made. He did throw a touchdown pass to Bo Nix in this game. If you're wondering about the running backs, it was 54% snaps to 32% snaps when it came to Javonte to Jaleel. Again, this was a blowout. 3 red zone carries for Javonte, 1 red zone carry when it comes to Jaleel in this game. And again, Bo Nix, like, I don't need to know how the sausage was made. He did have a receiving touchdown to go along with this. And I was thinking about this, like whether or not this would have been a predictive bench when it comes to Bo Nix. And I probably would have said no, because the Baltimore defense has been bad. But Kansas City probably would be a predictive bench. And then depending on how Atlanta and the Raiders go, you might have to be thinking about the Browns benching him. Very good playoff matchups that I'd be looking at when it comes to the Broncos, if you think you can trust your Bo Nix and the nimbly bimbly going on. Don't care about really the rest of the wide receivers. I will talk a little bit about Troy Franklin if you're going to be tracking on him. This would have been one of the weeks that I would have expected to have higher air yards and higher snap share, because they were getting blown out. Only 40% snaps in this one, and I don't believe 67 air yards and a red zone opportunity. So like I'm not buying or selling when it comes to like Troy Franklin. I'm a little concerned. Should have had more targets, more snap share in this game, but the targets that he did have were good targets from what I can tell. All right, moving on. I don't care about the Broncos tight end right now. Lucas Kroll was 29% snaps. Adam Troutman, he was still the tight end one right now, coming out of last week, 61% snaps. All right, Browns. When it comes to being able to predict, what can I predict? Jameis Winston did Jameis Winston things. So like he gave you 3 touchdown passes last week against Baltimore. He did 3 interceptions this week against the Chargers. So this is something that I generally would know. Primarily, it's can Jameis keep the other guys somewhat predictive? That's going to be something that I can probably bet coming out of the bye. That the targets will be there. I just can't always depend that the targets will be good. If that makes any sense. Now, running back wise, you are looking at like Jerome Ford back. He was at 46% snaps. Again, this was kind of a blowout in this one. He had 5 total opportunities, 3 targets. Primarily, you're looking at Nick Chubb at 35% snaps, but he did have 16 total opportunities in this one, and I want to make sure 4 red zone carries to Nick Chubb. None to Jerome Ford, and then Pierre Strong was at 15% snaps. So I did talk a little bit about Cedric Tillman. You are looking at this remaining somewhat consistent. 96% snaps, 11 for 6 for 75, 114 air, 2 red zone opportunities. He did tug on one of those. I don't really need to know. It was with 40 seconds left to go in the game. Other guys would be speculating on, and we talk about like the same thing with your George Pickens shares. You're going to get a certain amount of spike weeks when it comes to Jerry Jeudy and Elijah Moore. Jerry Jeudy, 11 for 7 for 73, 115 air yards, 2 red zone opportunities. And then Elijah Moore, 76% snaps, 9 for 3 for 28, but 142 air. They're gonna spike. It's just like, if I need to be rolling that guy out in that given week to try and catch that, and you're looking at like your Alec Pierces or something like that, it's remained consistent enough that I would be speculating on it. Down week when it comes to David Njoku, Atkins actually had more air yards than him, but 7 targets is generally what I want out of a tight end. The starting tight end. All right. Buccaneers on Monday night, and looking at like Baker May, he did throw 2 more touchdown passes in this game. If you're chasing that type of thing, they're generally, I think, going to be a throw first team for the rest of the year, if you're wondering. So Rachaad White, 62% snaps, 6 total opportunities. He does tug on one of his 3 carries. He only had 3 carries in this game. One of those was a red zone carry. He does tug on that one. Also looking at like Bucky Irving in this one at like 35% snaps. He has 10 total opportunities, 7 for 24, 3 for 3 for 10. One of those was a red zone target. So kind of flopped from what we want, like being able to predict that. But like, sometimes I don't need to know how the sausage is made. 13% snaps for Sean Tucker. Deeper league should be held on to. I can imagine he will inherit some of the role if one of those 2 guys goes down. In this one, wide receivers, Mike Evans out. Jalen McMillan pops up with a hamstring on Saturday. He is then, not a surprise scratch in this one. I would have been rolling him out if he would have been active. Trying to track where the targets were going. So first and foremost, I would say like Trey Palmer, 49% snaps, 4 for 2 for 33. So he ain't the guy. And then the other one, Sterling Shepard, he was at 60% snaps, 5 for 4 for 48. Now, this all means that like Cade Otton is going to remain a unicorn for week 10. And then the 2 other guys, like this would be out of dart throw range. Ryan Miller was at 62% snaps, designed touchdown at the end of the game, but only like 3 for 1 overall in this game. Like I imagine he may stay relatively consistent at 62% snaps. They kind of made it look like he was a tight end, and that's how he got his touchdown pass to him. And then finally, not Ryan Miller. My mic's in the way again. Raheem Jarrett, he was up to 84% snaps, only 1 for 9 in the game. Like, if you're going to be speculating on these guys next week, Cade Otton's going to stay a unicorn. And then if Jalen McMillan's active, I would probably be rolling him out as like a wide receiver 3. That means like you got to be in like really deep leagues to be chasing the snap share on Jarrett or Ryan Miller between these 2 guys. I do think that there is enough there that like if you're in deep enough leagues, you can kind of get cute and chase them. There's probably other guys that I think are a little bit more predictive. Cade Otton, 11 for 8 for 77, 53 air, 43 yak. So this is primarily like check down monster, like stuff that's going to him, but he's the number 1. 2 red zone opportunities. He tugged on one of those. So like, you get at least 1 more week of Cade Otton, unicorn against the Niners. Then you get a bye week, and then I would probably be downgrading him. He should probably stay in your lineup though, because even though he may not be the number 1, he's going to be the number 2. And that means he's a weekly roll regardless. if you're wondering. All right, Cardinals, and if someone wants to buy K. Dotton as a unicorn, realizing that he probably gets downgraded when Mike Evans comes back after the bye week. All right, Kyler Murray, I just have oof written down here. So this was kind of a blowout by the Cardinals of the Bears. They do not care about fantasy football. Like, the fantasy football gods are very cruel mistresses when it comes to that. And I bring this up outside of Kyler Murray giving you 4.7 points in the blowout. James Conner, he may have a hip injury. This is something that I would be speculating on after waivers between Benson and DeMercado. Leaning towards, if you want to be safe, DeMercado. If you want to be cute, it would be Benson. James Conner, 48% snaps, 18 for 107, 3 for 3 for 12, 7 red zone opportunities. He doesn't get any of them. They go to DeMercado, they go to Benson, and they go to Trey McBride on the ground. Trey McBride scored a rushing touchdown in this game. When it comes to this, Trey Benson, 28% snaps, 8 for 31. Tug on a red zone carry, 1 for 1 for 18. That's why I think like he probably has higher upside if he lands on the opportunities that he's going to get. If Connor misses time, DeMercado is going to probably get about 50% of snaps. 24% snaps, 4 for 59. That was a 53-yarder at halftime that he took to the house. And then 2 for 2 for 21. And if my notes are correct, he had a red zone target on the 2 for 2 for 21. So, there you go. Marvin Harrison, 91 air yards. Michael Wilson had a red zone target in this one. Trey McBride, 90% snaps, 2 red zone targets. Again, he scored on a red zone carry. That's just how it goes sometimes. All right. Moving on to the Chargers, and I was talking about this, about going after Justin Herbert. Tennessee, kind of a weird situation when it comes to Tennessee because they have a good defense, but they have a bad offense. Bengals, Ravens, and Falcons, then the Chiefs, and then the Buccaneers. I could definitely see getting a few spike weeks out of Justin Herbert where they're either in negative script games, which are good from a fantasy perspective, or they're at least in neutral pace games, and the rushing game is not particularly effective. Either one of those things, you're going to have the possibility of getting chasing the passing touchdowns to go a little bit of a rushing upside when it comes to that. J.K. Dobbins in this one, 74% snaps, 14 for 85, 2 touchdowns, 2 for 2 for 20. And in my notes, all the red zone opportunities went to him. He had 4, and then he tugged on 2 of those. Vidal was at 19% snaps. Looking at the Chargers, their wide receivers, Josh Palmer, 61% snaps, 4 for 2 for 63. He tugged 80 air yards in this one. Probably a very similar role to Quentin Johnston, 68% snaps, 5 for 4 for 118, a touchdown on a 66-yarder in this one. I didn't write down the air yards, so they probably were not substantial to go along with this. And again, sometimes it doesn't matter about chasing this stuff. Ladd McConkey, he was at 84% snaps. He's still the wide receiver 1. It just didn't land this week. He did have 88 air yards compared to like Josh Palmer's 80. 7 for 5 for 64 in this game. And then I don't care about Chargers tight ends. Moving on to the Chiefs. This may stay a little bit consistent when it comes to Patrick Mahomes. So a guy that I would have considered dropping, probably should have been trading to someone else. With Hopkins there, now we might get a little bit more consistency out of Patrick Mahomes to chase the passing touchdowns. Now, running back wise, I did see some speculation that Isaiah Pacheco is looking potentially to come back week 12. I don't think they're in any big hurry to activate him. If you're going to be looking at Isaiah Pacheco, I would be guessing that you're going to be getting him for the fantasy playoffs, because they have, like, with Pacheco and CEH that they didn't activate this game, you're looking at 5 running backs. And then to think that, like, one of those guys is likely, at least one of those guys is going to be deactivated for him to come back. And then he has to do somewhere between, like, what Kareem Hunt is doing now, or go more than what Kareem Hunt is doing now for him to have value. I imagine that when he does come back, if he comes back like week 12, week 13, something like that, there will be a ramp up period. That means that I probably would not feel good about predicting him depending on who is active until about week 15 of fantasy football. Now, Kareem Hunt in this game, 58% snaps, 27 for 106, 1 touchdown, 1 for 1 for 11. He is a running back too. Again, this is going to be the lack of receiving work, but again, I do like the red zone opportunities that he gets. I want to make sure I have him pulled up In this one, 7 red zone carries, and he tugged on one of them. Now, again, like I think there's a certain amount of cap to him because of the lack of the receiving work. And then you're primarily chasing the red zone opportunities attached to what could be a better offense because of Hopkins. Carson Steele was at 17% snaps. He did have a red zone opportunity in this game. What bothers me more with Hunt is going to be in this relatively like neutral pace game or negative script game between the Chiefs and the Buccaneers. Samaje Perine, 28% snaps, 1 for 10, and that goes along with like 5 for 4 for 25 and a touchdown. And that was a red zone opportunity that he tugged on when it comes to that. So just be advised on what you have when it comes to Kareem Hunt if you're speculating and someone wants to buy him, knowing that Isaiah Pacheco is now rumored to be coming back. There are other running backs in the mix, and that he is not actually a running back one. Sip water. All right. So moving on to the wide receiver room, and I will talk real quick about like Worthy was at 68% snaps, only 2 targets. Watson led everybody at 69% snaps, 4 targets. You're looking at Justin Ross was active at 8% snaps. Mecole Hardman, 18% snaps. He has a shoulder. And then Hopkins, and I got to go to the Titans to talk about him. He was only at 60% snaps in the game. 9 for 8 for 86, 2 touchdowns. I do have written down 64 air, 27 yak, 2 red zone targets. He did tug on both of those. This is a solid wide receiver. A 2 type of stat line. I think he's going to be capped. Some weeks he's likely not going to turn those red zone targets in. Travis Kelce did have 2 red zone targets that he did not convert. The other thing is the lack of air yards and probably like the use of him vertically down the field will never actually happen. So just, if I were to sell high right now, it would be, now's the time to do it. In general, like I would just be rolling him out there and expect a very solid wide receiver 2 rest of the season. I would be speculating on. When it comes to Kelce, you are looking at 84% snaps, 16 for 14, 100 fumble lost, 2 red zone opportunities, 82 air. Yeah, he's back. It looks to being the number 1 in the offense. So like we can talk about him being the unicorn. That's why I would generally downgrade Hopkins if you're wondering about that. Noah Gray was still at 69% snaps, only 1 target. And then Wiley, this is more of a fantasy or dynasty league thing. He goes on IR with an ACL that I guess he suffered in practice. Jordy Forson's also on IR, and then Henderson Shot was actually active at 16% snaps. All right, moving on to the Colts, and this was one of those ones where it looked good on paper, and then it just didn't work out the way that we wanted to. So we didn't get the upgrade when it comes to Joe Flacco in this one. 16 for 27, 179, and an interception. And then Jonathan Taylor, I do have written down in this one, 72% snaps. Trey Sermon was at 26% snaps. He only had 4 total opportunities, Trey Sermon, so you're still looking at JT primarily leading the backfield. When it comes to the wide receivers, I didn't write down anything when it comes to Pittman on his 4 opportunities. Josh Downs, this is probably like the thing about like I can tell who's properly managed and who's not properly managed when it comes to and I have literally written down like the snap shares are telling me like which teams have dumb coaching, and like roll these guys at your own risk. 50% snaps, 9 for 6 for 60 when it comes to Josh Downs. I don't know why like the snap share is that low on a guy like that. That's about all I have to talk about this one. Moving on to the Redskins. Let's see. So this was a little bit of a weird script game. 24-10 going into the fourth quarter, and then they let the Giants cut it to 27-22. Missed 2-point conversion with 2:48. So this is a little bit of a team playing with their food and not closing the game out when it comes to the Redskins and the Giants. So B-Rob was out with a hammy. We did not quite get full bell cow Austin Eckler, 47% snaps to go in this game. 3 red zone opportunities. He tugged on one of those, and then he also had a red zone target. Jeremy McNichols was at 39% snaps, and this is why I talk about like a little bit of Chris Rodriguez. He gets elevated because B-Rob's out, playing with your food. 32% snaps, 11 for 52, 5 red zone carries went to Chris Rodriguez. Then this one. Scary Terry, sometimes I don't need to know how the sausage is made. 3 for 2 for 19, 2 red zone targets. He tugs on both of those. I'll take that. Even though I don't really want to know about that. So in this game, Noah Brown's only at 50% snaps, 6 for 5 for 60. The snap share being down is concerning, but again, like I think this is generally not good coaching when it comes to the Redskins trying to close the game out. Zach Ertz was down to 48% snaps, 1 for 15. Ben Sinnott was to 39% snaps. Jake Bates or John Bates, he was at 52% snaps. He's the blocking tight end. I imagine this is the Redskins trying to conservatively get out of a game, and it bit them a little bit in the butt. When you're wondering about the overall usage of the guys, Cowboys. So Zach, first and foremost, does look like Dak Prescott is going to go on IR. That was today. I think Cooper Rush, if he is going to be the starting quarterback, I think he's serviceable enough. We've seen this before in the past. He's not necessarily good. I think he's good enough considering some of the weapons that the Cowboys should have. If you're worried about that, the bigger thing would be if Trey Lance actually gets the chance to play. I could see him having a certain amount of appeal as a streamer going forward because of the rushing upside. So Zeke was out, and that was supposedly because of disciplinary issues. So he's supposed to be back week 10, whatever that's supposed to mean. Dalvin Cook did not get this significant upgrade. 27% snaps week 8, 9% snaps when it comes to week 9. And this is the big deal. Like we were talking about this in the comments when it comes to Rico Dowdle, 71% snaps. 18 total opportunities in this game, 6 targets. I like all that good stuff. So if you want to be buying this stuff right now, 2 red zone carries, 2 red zone targets. He tugs on one of the targets. Like now we're starting to talk about like buying Rico Dowdle, or knowing what you got when it comes to like trying to trade him. The biggest thing, like, and I bet you might be able to get somebody that's a little concerned about Dak being out on an unpredictable offense. I think Cooper Rush is fine if you're wondering about that. CeeDee Lamb right now is tracking to miss week 10. That's what I would guess on. Like I would be speculating on CeeDee Lamb missing week 10 when it comes down to it. Brandon Cooks, I guess theoretically could come off of IR this week. I haven't heard anything about it. Jalen Tolbert would be the main guy. Like if you're going to be knife fighting for a guy to take over as probably the number 2 behind Jake Ferguson in the offense. 95% snaps, 6 for 3 for 19 and a touchdown. And I did have 77 air yards, 2 red zone opportunities to go along with that. The other one would be Jalen Brooks at, where is it at? 73% snaps in this game. 5 for 2 for 27, 57 air yards, 1 red zone target. Likely this is like deeper leagues that you'd be speculating on Jalen Brooks getting an upgrade. And then Ryan Flanoy would be the other one that you may want to be like getting a little cute about in deeper leagues on this one. He's the rookie that there was some camp hype about. Jake Ferguson, 82% snap, 10 for 7 for 71. And you could be seeing like him being a unicorn this week if CeeDee Lamb is out. The other thing I would talk about, like bad management, Luke Schoonmaker down to 1% snaps. He actually gets out snapped by the big blocking tight end, Brevin Spanford in this one. All right, moving on to the Dolphins. And I forgot about this last week to start off with, is they went out and they signed CJ Beathard. This would be another one that if Tua goes down again, like this is a massive upgrade to the quarterbacks that they had. This would probably keep your weapons on track. Now, moving on to like what is an actual like unicorn from a running back perspective, Devin Achane, 69% snaps, 12 for 63, touchdown, 8 for 8 for 58 in the passing game. He also gets a touchdown there. A red zone usage, 4 red zone carries, and he tugs on one of those. 2 red zone targets, he tugs on one of those on 8 targets. This is legendary usage. You could argue a little bit with Devin Achane that like you might want to see a little bit more overall carries in this one, but you're looking at red zone opportunities. You're getting design passing work, and primarily receiving work is more efficient than passing or rushing work. So like I would sacrifice like 4 carries for 4 targets any day of the week when it comes down to that, especially with him. Mostert had 1 red zone carry. There was a little bit of a usage flop that I did see being talked about on Twitter when it comes to Jalen Wright and Raheem Mostert. 15% snaps, 6 for 18 in this game, red zone carry. And again, this is after Raheem Mostert fumbled, lost at 23% snaps, 10 for 56, 2 for 2 for 32 in the passing game. Like you could be speculating a little bit on Jalen Wright going forward if you want to. And Jeff Wilson was inactive. don't have anything about the wide receivers for the Dolphins other than Malik Washington did outsnap OBJ 34-20, but OBJ did have 3 targets. Malik Washington had 0. But that's not surprising because the number 3 wide receiver for the Dolphins is A-Chain. Everything that you could spare to go get A-Chain if you could go get him going forward. If you want to speculate on that, this is one of the guys that I would say like does have a legendary upside season because of the passing work. The other one would be Barkley. He did Barkley things. 2 red zone carries. He tugged on one of them. 3 red zone targets. He did tug on one of them. That's about all I have to say about Barkley. Gainwell's the cuff at 28% snaps. A.J. Brown did see that this is not considered to be anything too bad when it comes to the knee, so like would be tracking on that one. If he's out, you would be looking at Devonta Smith jumping all the way up until like a wide receiver, top 10 wide receiver role. It would also upgrade Barkley. Vacated targets tend to go to running backs first and tight end second. And if we get another week of Dallas Goedert being out, you would be potentially upgrading to Grant Calcaterra into must-start land. 92% snaps, 3 for 3 for 30 in this one. So he was, moving in the direction that like we could predict. If A.J. Brown it misses a week, then the vacated targets like that, he would be an automatic roll. All right, Falcons. In this one, with Bijan, 4 red zone carries, 1 red zone target. That's about the long and short of what you need to know about his 74% snaps, 19 for 86. And then again, when we were talking about like what makes these guys valuable, 7 for 7 for 59 to go along with it. That's a 40-degree day before you get any rushing work or red zone opportunity. Drake London right now, or I'll finish this one off. Tyler Algier, 25% snaps. He did have 2 red zone carries, and he did tug on one of them. I want to finish that one off. Drake London right now, whatever day-to-day means with a hit pointer, I also saw that this is not supposed to be serious. Would be tracking the upgrade to Darnell Mooney and where's he at? Kyle Pitts if he's out. Now, I did see going after Ray-Ray McCloud. Ray-Ray McCloud is operating as like the slot in the offense. Like he's about 90% snaps. They live in 3 wide receivers. The guy to probably be speculating on would be Cardero Hodge. He's going to step into the Drake London role. Now, whether or not he gets that big slot work is going to be a little bit more speculative. But when you look at this week 5 Tampa Bay game, when he took the game winner to the house, he was in the Drake London role when he did that. So if you want to be speculating on Drake London missing a week and a guy stepping in 1-to-1, it would be Cardell Hodge. More so than anything else. That would be like wide receiver 3 dart throw relative to Ray McCloud that I would probably be a little less inclined to go after. With Drake London being out, Darnell Mooney does 100% snaps, 9 for 5, 88 touchdown, 108 air yards. So yeah, obviously like you get really close to like top 10 wide receiver when it comes to Darnell Mooney in this offense if you're going to get a week without Drake London. And then Kyle Pitts, 54% snaps, 1 for 1 for 11. I just have written down no idea. Giants. Let's see. Moving on. So Danny Dimes, if you're going to be chasing the Nimbly Bimbly in what would be a predictive play against like the Panthers, I understand. I probably would not be doing that if I were you or me. Tyrone Tracy, he stays at 72% snaps to Singletary's 28% snaps in this game. 16 for 66. All the red zone work went to him. 3 red zone carries and a red zone target. On 1 for 3. The more disappointing thing with Tyrone Tracy is they're not integrating him into the passing game. I don't understand that when it comes down to that. And generally, the Giants coaches are pretty good. The owner's already come out and said that he's not going to make any coaching changes when it comes to the Giants. He does tend to think that he's pulled the trigger too early, and he does think that Brian Daboll is a good coach, if you're wondering about that. Also talked about this in Chasing the Dragon is Darius Slayton. He is in the concussion protocol right now. So if he misses the week, not only would it be an upgrade to like Neighbors, but you also would be looking at Theo Johnson being a weekly start. We were already speculating a little bit about him after week 8. Week 9, 85% stats, 6 for 3 for 51, and a touchdown, 81 air yards. Daniel Bellinger was up to 22% snaps. He was another one that I was expecting that might have been traded today, but he didn't get traded. The Jaguars, and I did see a few things coming out that like ETN was benched in this game. I haven't seen that anything else. I don't know if this was like Twitter usage overall. 31% snaps for ETN in this game. Tank Bigsby, 52% snaps, 8 for 52. And Dearness Johnson, he would be the guy to be like chasing right now if you're into that type of thing. 24% snaps, red zone carry, red zone target. And again, like this was another one of those like weird script games when it comes down to it. The Eagles actually let the I gotta bring this one up. The Eagles actually let the Jaguars get back into the game right there. So like take some of this with a grain of salt, and you can see right there. The score came 4:04 left to go in the games. Trevor Lawrence falls in the end zone to cut it to 28-23. So the red zone opportunities that were going to Dearness Johnson, like they were in a game that ended up being a one possession game at the end at the end. So if there's a guy that I would maybe be speculating on, it would be Dearness Johnson. If you're in a deep enough league to go probably buy like a running back too. Brian Thomas, like, he probably wasn't 100% in this game, 91% snaps. He did have a red zone target. Gabe Davis was out with a shoulder. Now we can start speculating a little bit on Parker Washington rest of the season. 85% snaps, 6 for 3 for 41, 108 air yards. So, like, yeah, he's going to stay in a weekly dart throw range regardless of Gabe Davis coming back based off that. You also had Austin Trammell do 61% snaps in this game. Lost a fumble on the 3 targets that he had. Tim Jones was not the guy. I thought Tim Jones might be the guy that would step into that big X spot with Gabe Davis out. It wasn't. It was Austin Trammell. And then, if you're wondering, I do have written down my notes that Christian Kirk went on IR. Supposedly, he was going to get traded to Pittsburgh before he got injured. As we all know, Mike Williams went to Pittsburgh. Evan Ingram did get a slight upgrade in this game. 80% snaps, 68 air yards, red zone target. So, I don't know how much that would remain consistent with Gabe Davis coming back, but you could at least speculate that you're buying a number 2 in the offense that would massively upgrade Evan Ingram. Again, the red zone target, and he's actually getting air yards, which is something that he hasn't been getting before. Brenton Strange was outsnapped 17% snaps to Luke Farrell in this game at 26% snaps. I don't know what that means, but it's just like the little things that I do see on a week-to-week basis. So starting off with the Jets, I don't think Mike Williams getting traded to the Steelers does anything when it comes to the Jets. In this one, Garrett Wilson, 10 targets, 15, 8 air yards. Devontae Adams, 11 targets, 105 air yards. Let's see. As a team, the 2 red zone opportunities went to the tight ends in Conklin and Ruckert. So, like, if you're wondering about those 2, and then 1 went to Malachi Corey. I could definitely see that the double-digit targets remain consistent between Garrett Wilson and Devontae Adams. It might end up downgrading Brees for the rest of the year, and he probably already is disappointing you relative to the draft position that you spent on him. And I'm one of those guys that was wrong on Brees Hall. 76% snaps. The lone red zone carry went to him. It's more of an issue that he's not getting the design passing work relative to some of the other guys. And then Alan Lazard, IR chest. Tyler Conklin did tug on his red zone target, and I want to make sure. And then Ruckert was the other guy that was out there. I want to make sure that I didn't. Nope, left that in from last week, so I will remove that. So that was just me being lazy. Tyler Conklin did not score a receiving touchdown, but those 2 guys did have the red zone opportunities for the Jets. All right, Lions, and I did talk about this ahead of time that the Lions are just so good at real football that you can't predict anything when it comes down to this. I actually saw a metric when it came to the Sun God that like his numbers are exactly the same as they were last year. He's just getting like substantially less volume. So he's the same efficiency on less volume. If you're wondering about that. So Gibbs did 39% snaps, 2 red zone carries. He tugged on one of them, 1 red zone target. Monty did 56% snaps, 7 red zone carries. He's going to stay a weekly role as a running back too, regardless, because you're buying a guy who's going to have a lot of opportunities to fall in the end zone, a part of a good offense. You just can't always predict that he's going to be the guy that's going to fall in the end zone. With Jameson Williams, his suspension is over. But I also saw that they have a roster exemption, so it doesn't necessarily mean that he will be active this week, if you're wondering about that. Tim Patrick was at 77% snaps. The red zone target, when it comes to the tight ends, it went to Brock Wright, not Sam Laporta. So again, remember, they don't care about your fantasy lineup when it comes down to these guys. All right. Another sip of water. running back situation for the Packers. Let's see. Josh Jacobs, 55% snaps, 2 red zone target or carries in this game, and this was kind of a blowout for against the Lions. Emmanuel Wilson was at 20% snaps. He did have a red zone carry in this game. He did tug on that one. And then this was the little interesting thing to me. Chris Brooks, back from like making the team with the Dolphins. So he did get some extended run in this game, 2 red zone carries and a red zone target in the blowout. This is interesting stuff to me. Dobbs was at 83% snaps in this game. 7 targets. Again, he's an ugly low-end wide receiver too. That's not particularly interesting. Reed in this one. Again, I think he's a wide receiver 2 for the rest of the year. 68% snaps, 93 air yards, 6 for 5 for 113. And again, like I talk about this, like I wouldn't overthink Jaden Reed. You're probably going to get a certain amount of down weeks because of the competition for opportunities. You're also going to miss all the spike weeks if you get cute when it comes to like wondering about your Jaden research. I think just put him in your wide receiver 2 slot and just don't think about it for the rest of the year. Christian Watson was at 57% snaps. He had 140 air yards on his 7 targets and a red zone target. Like he just stays in that like weekly wide receiver 3 type flex range of guys that are out there. If you're wondering, if you're in deep enough leagues, but you have to worry about your Christian Watson, that's what he would be. And he would just be one of those guys that like if you are in a deep enough league that you are forced to roll your Christian Watson out as a weekly starter, like you just shouldn't get cute because he's gonna have like massive spike weeks based off of like that usage. That's gonna land at least 1 week. Like think you're Alec Pierce. Wicks was at 54% snaps. He did have a red zone target. Bo Melton was at 17% snaps. Tucker Croft, I keep mispronouncing his name. 100% snaps, 2 red zone targets. So if you're wondering about like, is it over when it comes to Tucker Croft? No, still gonna be there. Panthers. Bryce Young was serviceable from a fantasy perspective. Bring up him first. So you're looking at 16 for 26, 171, 1 touchdown, 1 interception. That's the main thing is like, you're not getting these ugly games where he got benched at the beginning of the year. So Chuba Hubbard, still like a running back 1 when it comes down to it. 79% snaps, 5 red zone carries, 2 touchdowns in this game. Miles Sanders still going to be a cuff at 23% snaps. No news on Jonathan Brooks, if you're wondering. And then the interesting stuff, like I'll get to Coker here in a second. Xavier Leggett, he was at 83% snaps in this game, 6 for 4 for 33 and a touchdown, 51 air yards. So yeah, like I think he's going to be maybe a wide receiver 2 for the rest of the year, like probably going to be in that dart throw range. The 83% snaps, red zone opportunity, a little bit of air yards, 6 opportunities. He also had a carry in this game. That's pretty close to like just leave him in your lineup. Don't overthink it. Jalen Coker, he was at 45% snaps. I imagine they just view him as a slot only player. If you're wondering, 3 for 2 for 36, 56 air yards compared to 51 air yards for Leggett. Mingo, he was at 28% snaps. He got shipped. Where's he at? Right there. He gets traded to the Cowboys. I don't know if and when that's going to matter from fantasy perspective, if you're wondering about that. And then you're looking at Adam Thielen may not come off the IR this week. There was some trade speculation about him. And remember, they have a week 11 bye when it comes down to this. David Moore, he would be the guy like that they just plugged into that like sacrificial X role. 87% stats, 4 for 2 for 20 in this game. Tommy Tremble was out, and that's what allowed Jatavion Sanders to jump to 85% snaps, 5 for 4 for 87. Like, would I be speculating on that? Like deeper leagues, bye weeks? Yeah, I probably would. Maybe the guy that like again he's a wide receiver or he's a tight end. Maybe. I would be looking at him versus Leggett if you're wondering about that. And then the other thing that I have written down in my notes is, Jordan Matthews, converted wide receiver. He actually made the active roster in this one. And if you're wondering about like, well, who's Jordan Matthews? So his first 2 years in the league, first 3 years in the league, like he was fantasy relevant wide receiver when he was with like Philadelphia. Now converted to a tight end. That's probably not going to be anything too interesting going forward, but like just stuff that pops up. Drake May, Want to know why your Nimbly Bimbly is so important to your fantasy players? And this is why I have written down my notes. 8 for 95 to go along with like one passing touchdown and 3 total turnovers, 2 interceptions, 1 fumble lost, 1 fumble not lost, and then he still puts up 17 points. Again, your scoring settings and my settings may be a little bit different. That's just, I don't need to know how the sausage was made. I'll take most weeks I'll take 17 points from a quarterback I didn't spend on. It's also why, I have this written down. When it comes to chasing running backs that are attached to bad offenses is a bad idea, except for when it gets you there. So Ramondre does 74% snaps, 10 for 16. He tugs on a red zone carry, 5 for 5 for 38. He tugs on a red zone target, and it wasn't really a red zone target. It was just like a Hail Mary from Drake May. And again, like, this is why chasing usage on bad offenses is bad, because you get very little opportunities to score touchdowns on very little good opportunities when it comes to it. So like it happens sometimes, but this is why chasing it is not particularly a good idea. Gibson was at 12% snaps. Jermichael Hasty was at 14% snaps. So like that was a little bit interesting when it comes to like usage flop in general. If you're going to be speculating on wide receivers when it comes to the here, when it comes to the Patriots, you're looking at Keyshawn Butte. He's the guy to go after. 112 air yards, 6 targets, 96% snaps in this game. Only 2 for 18 landed, but like he's the guy to speculate on. Pop Douglas, he was at 71% snaps, 9 for 735. You're looking at 63 air yards in a red zone opportunity. I would probably prefer Butte to Pop Douglas. If you're looking for like an ability to win your week. If you're looking for like a 40-degree day, it would be Pop Douglas. Polk, and I just have written down my notes, it looks like they've seen enough of Polk for this year. He may be done when it comes down to that right here. 13% snaps in this game. And then you're also looking at Baker. 6% snaps in this game. Would be tracking a little bit on him in deeper leagues. Kendrick Bourne, 66 air yards on top of that. All right. And then Hunter Henry, 8 for 7 for 56, 50 air yards, 4 red zone opportunities. So like if you're chasing anything, you're chasing the red zone opportunity when it comes to Hunter Henry in this one. Raiders. So Gardner Minshew was benched again, and I don't know how much you want to be chasing bad offenses. Just remember that he gets benched for Desmond Ridder, and Desmond Ridder did look a little bit better in this game. I don't know what's going to happen going forward when it comes to these guys. Zamir White, 3 red zone carries. Again, like bad coaching. He does tug on one of those in this game. Alexander Madison does have 3 red zone carries on his 39% snaps in this game, if you're wondering. And then Amir Abdullah was at 29% snaps. Didn't write anything else down when it comes to these guys. Probably don't care. And then Jacoby Myers, he was at 97% snaps, 11 for 8 for 105, 110 air yards. Like, yeah, very solid wide receiver 2. What probably stops him from even being in the wide receiver 1 conversation is likely that he is going to be the number 2 behind Brock Bowers, and he's not going to get enough red zone opportunities. But again, 110 air yards on 11 targets is pretty good. Trey Tucker was at 92% snaps, 6 targets, don't care. Ramel Keaton was at 44% snaps compared to DJ Turner's 34% snaps. Don't care. Again, I don't have anything about Brock Bowers or Michael Mayer. Theoretically, Michael Mayer can come off the NFI last time I saw this. So I don't know if that's going to come up. Rams, when it comes to Kyron Williams. So Kyron Williams remains this like really odd unicorn when it comes to in this offense. So 99% snaps, 5 red zone carries, 1 red zone target. He doesn't cash any of those in this game. 25 total opportunities, 3 targets. Of those 3 targets, Blake Corum only 1% snaps, Running Rivers 0. Puka gets kicked out of the game, but for throwing a punch, if you're wondering, on his 35% snaps, 4 targets. Cooper Kupp jumps all the way up to 14 for 11 for 104 on 92% snaps. He did have a red zone target. With Puka getting kicked out of the game, that's where you get like Demarcus Robinson. He should stay a wide receiver 3 for the rest of the season as long as everybody stays healthy. Uh, 70% snaps, 9 for 6 for 94, 2 touchdowns. I did have written down that one of those was a red zone target that he tugged on, 142 air yards. So yeah, you're getting really close to deeper leagues, like just weekly start when it comes to it. Jordan Winston was out with a shoulder. Tutu was at 34% snaps. Tyler Johnson was at 38% snaps red zone target. So like, yeah, Puka, Cooper Kupp, Robinson, that would generally be the guys that I think they want to roll out as their week-to-week starters. Colby Parkinson was down to 42% snaps. This is something I was tracking on. I don't have any news on Tyler Higbee when it comes down to like quote unquote him being ahead of schedule. Um, I don't know how relevant this is going to be outside of deeper leagues between Puka, Cooper Kupp, and Demarcus Robinson, because now we can start talking about like the tight end where he would fit into the offense. We did get Davis Allen all the way up to 55% snaps in this game, 3 for 1 for 5, but, and here's the but, 3 red zone targets. So in deeper leagues, yeah, we'll probably be stashing him and trying to see how that works out. Hunter Long was at 34% snaps with these two guys. Was tracking the usage flop with the tight ends. All right. Ravens blew out the whoever they played, the Broncos in this game. I did see the Lamar Jackson popped up on the injury report with a knee again. I don't think that's going to be too big of an issue. Don't have much to say about the the Ravens running backs outside. Keaton Mitchell may play week 10. He's on track for that. Deontay Johnson was at 30% snaps in this game. Zay Flowers did all his damage on 53% snaps. 6 for 5 for 127, 2 touchdowns, 2 red zone targets, 68 or 62 air yards, 60 yak. So like that's really good usage for Zay Flowers. I don't know how consistent that's going to be going forward when Deontay Johnson integrates into the offense. He had no opportunities in this game. Rashad Bateman was at 61% snaps, 4 for 3 for 25. Didn't write down any air yards or anything, so it wasn't anything significant. Mark Andrews was at 49% snaps. Isaiah Likely, he's out right now with a hamstring. So I don't necessarily even think that like consolidates targets or opportunities when it comes to the Ravens. And again, you see 49% snaps. Like Charlie Kohler may get a slight uptick overall, but like your guess is going to be as good as mine when it comes to anybody not named Lamar Jackson and Derrick Henry in this offense. Again, with Zay Flowers, what scares me more is being able to predict another Zay Flowers spike week. If you're rolling him out as a wide receiver 3 and you're expecting like another week like this, like you could probably guess that you're going to get another week like this, like between now and the fantasy finals. I just don't know like how much you're going to be able to predict on a week-to-week basis anything the longer that Deontay Johnson integrates in the offense. Now, Deontay Johnson, week 14 bye, I could definitely see that he doesn't entirely integrate in until week, the fantasy playoffs. And if you want to be rolling out like your Zay Flowers, your Rashad Bateman, or your Deontay Johnsons in the fantasy playoffs and be able to predict anything more than like a spike week, good luck with that one. All right, moving on to the Saints. And I talked about this in Chasing the Dragon. So Chris Olave out, it says out of the hospital with a concussion. Cedric Wilson right now, he gets knocked out. I think it was a hip or shoulder, whatever it said. Bub Means is on IR. Rashid Shaheed is on IR. So like Mason Tipton, he is the wide receiver 1 when it comes to the Saints right now, 77% snaps. I wouldn't be chasing any of these guys when it comes down to it. Tight ends, it looks like they were running their 2 other tight ends as like starting wide receivers. 80% snaps for Foster Moreau. And then Juwan Johnson in this one was at 65% snaps. That's why we could talk about part of the reason why we can talk about upgrading Taysom Hill with Jamal Williams being out with the groin. And I don't think it necessarily matters if Jamal Williams is upgraded overall based off of the usage of Taysom Hill. And then Kendry Miller is on IR with that hamstring. That's why we could talk about who else is going to get the football besides not named Alvin Kamara. It's probably going to be Taysom Hill on this one. Now, the main thing with Taysom Hill is the boom bust aspect to him, but the vacated targets would lend me to believe that like that 5 for 4 for 41, which would pretty much give me a 40-degree day when it comes to tight ends, that will remain consistent with a certain amount of red zone opportunity. That's why I'd be chasing him before waivers clear, if you're wondering about that one going forward. And then Alvin Kamara, like full bell cow, like full ridiculous bell cow in this one. bring him up so I can talk about him. You're looking at 77% snaps, 29 for 155, 9 for 6 for 60, 4 red zone carries, 1 red zone target. And the only thing that stopped them from having this like ridiculous spike week is Taysom Hill vultured a touchdown on one of his 2 red zone carries, and Foster Moreau vultured a touchdown on one of his 2 red zone targets. That's what stopped you from having this ridiculous Alvin Kamara week, similar to like week 2 where he did like 43 points. He only did 24 points because other guys vultured the red zone opportunities when it comes down to him. All right, Seahawks did see that DK Metcalf was on the trade block. They didn't trade him. I got no news on him and his knee. They are going into a bye this week, if you're wondering about that. Don't have a lot to say about the running backs. All the red zone work went to Kenneth Walker over Charbonnet, 76% snaps to 25% snaps. Lockett with vacated opportunities, 89% snaps, 4 for 3 for 63 and a touchdown. That was not a red zone target. Jake Bobo was at 53% snaps, 1 target. Cody White was up to, I want to bring him up. So Cody White, he goes to 44% snaps, 3 for 2 for 44, and he blocked a punt. So with the targets going down, or the snap share going down for Bobo and Cody White stepping in there, like that base signal, like Bobo, like not being what some of us would like him to be long term when it comes to Seahawks. If you're wondering about that, why I would bring that one up. Now, did see some of the stuff on JSN, and that's why I want to get to JSN late. 89% snaps, 13 for 7, 180, 2 touchdowns, 2 red zone targets, 227 air. Yeah, I'd be buying him right now, especially like I don't know how much you're going to have to pay on a guy like his. Like someone may want to try, quote unquote, sell high on a Jackson Smith-Njigba. And I would pay the price that you're probably going to have to pay for him, which to overpay on a guy like this, you'd probably be looking at like spending like wide receiver 2 money to go get, a Jackson Smith-Njigba and to chase this ridiculous usage. Now, why I would bring this up with DK Metcalf being out is they don't function the same way in the offense. You may get a certain amount of week-to-week opportunity funnel going to JSN if they've quote-unquote unlocked him with the vertical routes down the field, like in-breaking routes and stuff like that, and red zone opportunities. This is all stuff that I would want to be getting ahead of when it comes to him. So if you're buying him in that wide receiver 2 range, knowing that you can slot him into like wide receiver 3 or flex type thing where you can absorb the possibility that he's a disappointment or isn't a guy that's going to be predictive, but it's going to have a certain amount of spike weeks. This usage would be something to chase. So like this is special usage when it comes down to it overall. With Noah Fant out, and this is one of the other things I was talking about. So Noah Fant is out. Expected to avoid IR for whatever that means. AJ Barner, with the bye week, like he would be a guy to be speculating on right now. 91% snaps, 7 for 4 for 27, 2 red zone opportunities also. So like I could definitely see that we're going to get some usage flops with the Seahawks in their receiving core coming out of the bye if they've kind of figured some of this stuff out. Don't have a lot to say about the Steelers when it comes to them being on bye week, other than they went and they picked up Mike Williams. Again, what I would say on this one is speculate the right way when it comes to George Pickens and Mike Williams. Mike Williams is probably always going to be a high-end wide receiver 3 boom bust or low-end wide receiver 2 boom bust, however you want to view him when it comes to going forward. Now, I could see with George Pickens is this could either unlock George Pickens on a week-to-week basis, and again, not a real football channel. I don't care about people's personalities. So the Mike Williams trade could open up George Pickens. The other thing it could do is turn this into some type of competition for opportunity. So again, like if you can buy George Pickens for a bag of chips, yes, I would do that. If you could sell George Pickens for a bag of chips, I understand why you would do that also with Mike Williams coming in there if you're worried about that. Joe Mixon and the Texans in this one. Moving on to this. He was at 56% snaps. Dare was out with a groin. Dare was at 37% snaps, 1 carry, 3 targets, 1 red zone carry, 1 red zone target. This was kind of a knife fight. Joe Mixon, all but 4 opportunities, 6 red zone carries, if you're worried about all this stuff. So the other thing with the Texans, bring this up with Tank Dell, he did 73% snaps, 9 for 6 for 127 red zone target. So I didn't write down the air yards, so they probably weren't too significant. Robert Woods did 49% snaps compared to Xavier Hutchinson's 75% snaps. Hutchinson had 3 targets and a red zone target. I don't know how much I would necessarily want to be chasing this stuff. Like none of it landed. Meche was up to 63% snaps, 2 targets, and a red zone opportunity. So like, if you're in deep enough leagues with one more week, you're looking at the possibility, where's he at, of rolling out like deep leagues. Who else is going to be the guy in this getting a hold of this? Primarily the guy that I would be looking at is like Dalton Schultz, like the 6 targets that he did on 71% snaps, 6 for 3 for 21. Cade Stover, 44% snaps, 2 targets, so didn't get the uptick that I thought might happen because of the vacated opportunities that were going on with the receiving core for the Texans. All right, Will Levis was out again with a shoulder. I just have a pretty much full bell cow. Tony Pollard, I think Julius Tetna did vulture red zone opportunity. Calvin Ridley, and I guess like you could say Calvin Ridley is a buy if you want to. I don't know how much I'd be trusting this one. Some of this usage remains consistent. 8 for 5 for 73, 122 air yards. Nick Westbrook-Akine would probably be the guy that I would feel a little bit better about as a low end wide receiver 3. 97% snaps, 6 for 5 for 50, red zone target that he tugged on. So he's going to be in that list of guys. I don't care about the tight ends. Finally, to finish off with the Vikings, and there's some good news here to talk about this. So whether or not I would be trading Aaron Jones, I did see this pop up there. 75% snaps, a little bit disappointing considering the matchup. 4 red zone opportunity. All the red zone work went to him. 4 red zone carries, 1 red zone target. The other thing that I would talk about this is why I would be a little bit concerned when it comes to Aaron Jones in this game. 22% snaps, 6 for 47, 2 for 2 for 7 when it comes to Cam Akers. I'm not saying that I would trade Aaron Jones. I'm also not saying that I wouldn't entertain the right trade of Aaron Jones, knowing that Cam Akers is going to be there and Aaron Jones kind of operates better as a 50-50 back. Ty Chandler was down to 4% snaps. I don't have a lot to say about the wide receivers other than Jalen Nailor only did 27% snaps. Jalen Nailor's snap share has been all over the place this season. Looking at 93% snaps in week 2, 86% snaps, 42% snaps, 73% snaps. And that's with different wide receivers being in and out of the lineup. The big issue in all this, if you're wondering about TJ Hawkinson, 45% snaps, 4 for 3 for 27, red zone opportunity, 42 air yards. Yeah, I would just consider rolling him this week if you're into that type of thing. And to finish off all the stuff that I was looking at, Pickens, like pick your poison, like buy or sell. I think there's good arguments both ways. I probably would be buying on JSN right now. AJ Barner maybe is a buy in deeper leagues or dynasty leagues. Taysom Hill would be a guy I'd be knife fighting with when it comes to waivers this week. I probably would be selling Zay Flowers after this week because of the Deontay Johnson coming in. Davis Allen, deeper leagues for the Rams, tight end. Demarcus Robinson is probably a wide receiver 3 rest of the year. Jacoby Myers is a pretty solid buy if you get a hold of him. Bad offense. Look at this. Keyshawn Butte in deeper leagues for the Patriots, 112 air yards. A little bit interesting to be looking at that down the line. Coker, 45% snaps. Like I don't know if this is a buy or sell thing when it comes down to him. That's part of the reason why he's disappointed is just because of the low snap share. Looking through some of these guys, I think that's about it. Parker Washington is still like deeper leagues. He'd be a wide receiver 3. I do like Evan Ingram. Rest of the year, which is surprising considering how I did not like him coming in this season, but the loss of Christian Kirk changed his usage this week. Cardale Hodge over Raymond McLeod if you're going to be chasing theoretically Drake London being out this week. Grant Calcaterra would still be in line if A.J. Brown misses time and Dallas Goedert's out. Let's see. A-Chain, if you can buy, like we already talked about A-Chain, if you're wondering about that. Jalen Tolbert's all right. Wide receiver 3. Would upgrade Jake Ferguson if CeeDee Lamb is out. And Hopkins was a good play. Kareem Hunt, what's going on with Isaiah Pacheco? I don't know if you want to be. I would probably be selling on Kareem Hunt right now while you could get away with like he's only going to be an RB2. With Pacheco coming back, like put together like overpay for somebody else, like some one of these other speculative guys. McConkey 84% snaps. Let's see. If you're going to be speculating on the Cardinals after waivers, the two running backs, Benson's going to be the upside guy. DeMarcado is going to be the safe play coming in the week. Let's see, the Browns wide receivers still. Oh yeah, Dalton Kincaid's probably a buy right now because you could probably get him for relatively cheap. Rome, relatively probably cheap going forward. I wouldn't trust the Bears offense for the rest of the season. And I think that's about it when it comes to after waivers for week 10.